So, welcome back to another MotoGP Mac podcast with myself, Mac, and Jake. And today we have a special guest, Steve Parish, on with us ahead of the Northwest 200 that is coming up. So, welcome, Steve. And how has life been?
Life's been great, actually. I've had a cracking start to the year. Spent 3 weeks in South Africa riding lovely RG 500 out there. A couple of classic events there. Came back and was straight into a surprise 70th birthday that my wife stitched me up with about 120 of my friends turned up that I didn't know were going to, and it was really nice to see them, apart from the £7,000 bar bill that I got at the end of it. It was worth it because you're only 70 once, I think. And then I had my son's wedding last weekend, which was really cool. It all went very well, and this coming weekend I'm at Goodwood racing a car for a change, not a motorcycle. So busy time, and then after that I'm off to the Northwest 200, and then I get a week off, and then I'm out to the TT. So yeah, quite a busy start to the year.
Very busy.
I should really be retired, but I don't really like all that. I like being busy and like doing things that fascinate me.
Well, they say that you can sleep when you're dead. Isn't that true? So no rest for the wicked.
And of course, I love giving money away to bar bills and weddings and things like that.
Yeah.
You feel it just sucking the money right out of your pockets as you walk by. Everybody going, thanks, Steve. Yeah, okay, thanks.
Well, as they say in Ireland, isn't it? The best party is the party you don't know about until you get the bill.
That's the one.
But look, well, belated happy birthday anyway, and
thank you.
Again, look, thanks for coming on. So I suppose we just have a couple of questions to go through. I suppose about MotoGP, and then we'll focus mainly on road racing, since you touch on both. But so you've at this stage seen a couple of races in MotoGP with the new race format. What are your thoughts on it? What do you like it? Do you not like it?
Yeah, I think it's great. Maybe if I was doing it, I wouldn't, because the guys are all kind of saying, oh, it's a bit too much and everything else. But I think now I'm a spectator and I watch it on TV. I watch the race. I've been out in my house in Mallorca, so I kind of was watching it out there. And I think it's great. Yeah, it's exciting. I like the sprint race because it gives the guys a chance to give the bike everything, because there's so much of this kind of making sure my tyre survives and this happens and that happens. So, and I'm aware that there's been more accidents this year, and people are going, what can we do to stop accidents? You can't do anything about it. If people want to go fast and push to 99%, they're going to fall off. And so I guess as the season goes on, someone's going to wake up and say, well, look, I might as well finish fifth 10 times and finish first 5 times and crash 5 times. So that's probably what's going to happen. But it's ridiculous to say it's dangerous having shorter races, because people are going to race as fast as they can. Every single person has a fuse in their head, and that fuse, if it doesn't blow, then you crash. And so you just have to work things out. And that was the same with when I was racing. It was the same when Jeff Duke was racing, and whoever you want to think about, because you go as fast as you can without falling off. And that's the end of the story. And that's what wins championships, by getting lots of points as many times as you can.
Points equal prizes. It's true. But a question that I do have, though, as well, is on, Jake will growl at me now for this, right? But on aero, are you a fan or are you not a fan of aero?
Yeah, I am actually a fan of any technology that can come into making anything faster. And if you think about it, when aero first came in, everyone said, oh, what a waste of time, it's rubbish. But if you went out and you've got £20,000 in your pocket now, you're going to go and buy a motorcycle that has aero on it. Now, whether it's beneficial, probably not, to the bloke that's riding it, it's not. But the guy's going to pay his £20,000 to have what Bagnaia has on his bike, or Marc Marquez has on his bike, or whatever. People want what is the top end of technology. It's dining out on it. It's when you're at a dinner party and you talk about, you've got a bike that's the same as Marc Marquez's, or that's life. And so eventually people work out that racing develops a better product for the road. Motorcycles are slightly different, because let's face it, nowadays you pay your £30,000-40,000 for your Ducati that's got wings on it, and it's got traction controls, it's got this on it. 99.9% of the people aren't going to use it, but they're going to talk about the fact that they've got it, and they're going to spend their money. So, I don't mind it. I love it. I actually watch the aeros. I watch the kind of shapeshifter systems, and I watch that, and I love it. Yeah, I think it's technology that will actually eventually feed itself back into the road vehicles. That's as long as, I don't know how long it's going to be. Luckily, I'll be dead when they get rid of everything that's electric and shit. But frankly, I think technology is wonderful. I love seeing people coming up with great ideas, and I think it's fascinating. I'm actually an engineer. I started off as being a mechanic and an engineer, and I find it all absolutely fascinating. So if they get rid of it, then I think it's ridiculous, because people should be able to use their brains and their abilities to develop products that are beneficial.
Exactly. Yeah, my whole family are engineers, and I was always engineer nut. I the only one that went finance, but and at this point, when they have so much horsepower, it's my opinion, they have so much horsepower, so much speed. People say, "Oh, just drop it off." Oh, that's good. Put your butt on there and see if you want to drop it off when you come into that corner, because now it's a safety device. Now you have that. It's a need, not an option.
Yeah.
It's the speed. Everybody wants the speed, but they don't want it. They want it to look like 1950. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah. No, and let's face it, MotoGP particularly, Superbikes will probably end up that way. It's really drag racing between corners. And if you watch it, that it's a way of muddling it around the corner, and then the guy that can accelerate from turn 13, whatever the final corner is, to turn 1 down the main straight, is going to be in front. And you cannot use 300 horsepower, which they've got, without some kind of assistance, whether it be a shapeshifter, whether it's aerodynamics, I don't know, whatever it is. And if you want to win races, you want to pass down the straights. I was told very early days in my racing, the best place to pass is down the straight. It's much safer. And so that's what it is. I mean, it looks a bit ridiculous at times, but frankly, racing is racing. And if the rules allow you to do it, then do it. And I think it's absolutely fascinating. But it doesn't take anything away from it. The racing's been as good as we've ever seen.
Yeah, exactly.
We've been talking about.
Yeah.
It's not as if it's wrecking the racing. Not at all.
Yep. Yeah, Christ, what are they? Do you get the top 10 riders and they're within a half second of each other? I mean,
yeah, sure.
It's amazing.
We always use Formula One as a base marker, and that is false racing, because they have their, whatever it's called, the wing that opens up, and that's DRS, a bit like saying that's like saying a Bagnai, you can't get under the screen if you're in front, but the guy behind can. So that, to me, that's manufactured overtaking. But I think at the moment, what we've got is technology that people are developing. Unless, I think Ducati, really, you've got to give them credit for it, and I take my hat off to the guys. They're the ones that are out there leading at the front. They're the guys that are coming up with great ideas, and everyone else is having to copy them. So good on them.
Yeah. Look, I agree with you. I'm not a fan in the way that I just hope that there's a limit. Not a limit is wrong, but you don't get like you have in Formula One, where drivers have to use a step to get into the car, to step over all the aerodynamic devices, that the rider can get on and off the bike normally,
Yeah. I don't think that's something that's going to happen, but no. But the guys, I mean, they are very young, they're very smart. They've got an awful lot to do on a bike now. I mean, I have to say, when I was riding, and up until probably 20 years ago, that you kind of, all you had to do is twist the throttle at the right time and put the brakes on at the right time. And it wasn't easy, because you had like engines that didn't have nice torques and nice power bands. But nowadays they've got to press buttons and do this and do that and fix it for the start. Exactly. So it's become slightly more complicated, but they're young and they can absorb it. And if they don't learn it, they don't win.
That's very true. And look, I think the learning from an earlier age really does help as well. You know what I mean? You look at, like, I have a boy that's 12, right? He can whip me around on an iPad or a thing, and I'm fairly tech savvy myself. Do you know what I mean? All of a sudden he's like, yeah, but you just do this and that, and
nope, we lost you.
We lost him again.
Yeah, I lost you for a second. But
there we go.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant to watch youngsters, what they can do, and the motorcycle has become a fairly high-tech piece of equipment nowadays, but then what hasn't, realistically? And I can barely work my coffee machine. So it's wonderful, and I really applaud the people that are out there thinking of new ways of making things go faster.
Brilliant. And I suppose I'll split this question into two. You know, when you watch MotoGP, what's your brand, or which are the ones that you're really pulling for to succeed? Is it Ducati? Is it like KTM?
I don't ever have a manufacturer. I have a rider normally.
That's the next question.
That's one of the nice things about motorcycling is that you tend to, and I have, and I think most people do, they tend to pull for a rider. Doesn't matter what the machine he's on. You just watch what his skills and abilities are, and follow that. And it's very human motorcycle racing, because you can see that person doing what he's doing. He's doing his job in front of you. He's using his body weight and he's shifting himself around, and then on top of that, part of his character comes into it. So you end up, I wouldn't say loving is not the right word, but you end up enjoying a rider for a number of things: his skill, his ability, his bravery, his character, his politeness, whatever you want to call it. So that's what I've always followed, and I think that's something that we need to continue. And I'm probably going to go on more than what your question is. And the problem is we have a situation where I get asked it, and you might do, and it gets on a regular daily basis. Where's the next character coming from in motorcycle racing? Mm-hmm. Well, we're hardly ever going to see one, because the riders that are on the grid now, the majority don't have characters, because they've had it sucked out of them. They've come from the age of 6 years old riding bikes. At 13, they're in some kind of academy, and at 15, they've got a psychiatrist, a dietitian, a gym. They've got everything. They're not really human beings. They're homogenized beings that have been funneled or honed into a rider. How can you find a character? Because they've probably never had a shag behind the bus shelter, as people in my era did, and had a fag, at the back of the school. They're not normal human beings, and that's not just motorcycle racers. That will be footballers, that will be tennis players, that will be rugby. Everybody in this sport, in the world of sport now, are somebody that's never had what I call a proper life. So they're not going to be a character that we all know.
And motorcycle racers, being anyone that takes risks like that, have a tendency to be hell raisers in normal life. Like back in your day, everybody was hell racers, because people who take risks like that, and I gotta say I was one of them. I was a wild kid, take risks. They have a tendency to, hit the bottle or chase broads and things of that nature. You know what I mean? Like you say, have the shag
because
and all that.
I don't think I certainly didn't, and I don't think there's many people of my era. It's changed, obviously, because I'm talking years and years and years ago. You didn't start out life thinking I'm going to be a motorcycle racer. You just rode a boat around the road, and then you saved up some money and you went racing and found out you were pretty good at it. But you'd had what I call a normal, balanced life. And you didn't necessarily have to have a load of money to do it. Whereas now you kind of feel as though initially you have to come from a relatively privileged family to get your first foot on that first rung of the ladder. So I think you have to accept that there won't be another character out there, because all you'll get is someone that is absolutely brilliant at what they do at a very, very high level, and you have to enjoy that. But you're not going to get anyone that's going to say or do anything stupid, because they get fired for doing something normal and stupid.
I think that's the key that's changed. Like I remember the days gone by of racing in Mandela on Saturday and Sunday, and Saturday night you were in prosperous disco, dancing the night away ahead of the race Sunday morning. But I think it's changed now. It's become very corporate and very PC, and you can see MotoGP, I suppose, going the way of Formula One, where it's all about advertising, image, sponsorship, and that is taking over, which is killing, I suppose, the kind of the bad boy look of what bikes used to be. Do you know what I mean? But saying that, who's your world champion for 2023? MotoGP.
I'm gonna go. I don't know, because there is so many variables in these things, but I think it will be a Ducati, because I think they're leading the way in technology. And I think from what I've seen, and he made a stupid mistake, but I think the current world champion will go on to win another one. Bagnaia, I think, is a very level head on very young shoulders. I think he's hugely talented. But, there are lots of things. Injuries are the biggest issue now, aren't they? I mean, okay, they've got airbags and they've got great crash helmets and great boots, great gloves and everything else, but it's so easy just to snap a bone and you're out of it for a short period of time, and that will ruin your championship. But
exactly
before the start of the season, I have a little bet with some mates, and I still had Marquez down, but he's not going to do it now because he sort of busted himself up again.
He did.
And I also thought that Honda would get their shit together, which I don't think they have. So my gamble's gone out the window already. But after seeing the first three races, I think Bagnaia he made a silly mistake at the last one, but I think he's still going to be the man.
Okay, fair enough.
I have a question for Steve, though. I'm not that I don't have the skill level, let's face it, for when you say that he made a mistake. When I look at it as a spectator and I see a guy and he's going that fast and they're at that edge, it always amazes me when somebody says they made a mistake. Did they really make a mistake, or it just happens?
Well, I mean, I haven't looked at the data and whatever, but I'm going to guess, and this is just a wild guess, that he probably went into that corner at 4 kilometres faster and held the brake on for 0.6 of a second longer and just tucked the front out. And that was unfortunate.
Yeah. He said he lost it on the gas, so it was probably the bike transitioning, but he was probably going faster. Yeah,
I mean, it's minute because, as I said, to win races, you've got to be on 99.9% or 99.8%. And if you're at 101, which is like fuck all, excuse my French, it's going to fall down. And so he'll look back on it. He'll be cross with himself, but he'll come back again, I'm sure, and he'll learn from that. He was already kind of dominating the race to a certain extent. He'd got the job sorted out. But we're human beings, you make mistakes. God forbid the day that they make it so that you can't make a mistake.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now, I suppose on to road racing and the Northwest, which is actually probably one of my favorite ones because it's so condensed. Joe, I know there's the practice all week, but it's like Thursday race, Saturday, then all day. You in the commentary box, which for many years I streamed, I think it's going back about, I'm not going to say too long, but I'd say about 10, 12 years listening on BBC. Yeah. And if you can imagine Ireland, you couldn't really get BBC properly down here, so we had to flick around through the radio stations to actually tune it right in to get the Northwest. So there was nothing online at this stage. Nowadays, things are a little bit different. It's much easier. I suppose, what are you looking forward to most about this year's Northwest?
It'd have to be the Guinness in the Harbour Bar. Yeah. No, I'm kidding. I like you. I love the Northwest. For me, it's probably my favourite event. I love the people that are out there. I enjoy the beautiful area on the north coast up there. I love road racing, mass start road racing, and you haven't seen it yet, but I have, and I can't tell you too much about it, but there's an amazing entry with some incredible motorbikes. In theory, it's the biggest and best entry at the Northwest I've seen in the 10, 12, 15 years that I've been doing it. And I reckon there's potentially, seriously, 5 or 6 winners in each race, particularly the superbike races, super stock races. There's such a depth in it of different motorcycles, all winners in the past, and it should be a cracking race week. As you rightly say, Thursday and Saturday now, and that was done purely because of weather. We've had so many times when Saturday's been a washout, so at least now you get 4 races away on Thursday and get the ball rolling, and let's hope that we can have some decent weather. But I've had some, as you were saying, you probably listened to some of the crap we've spoken. I've sat in that commentary booth with Richard Nichols on all day long talking absolute bollocks because there's not been any action on the track. And I hope we don't have to do that again. It was quite funny doing it, but I just hope we don't have to do it again.
Yeah, bringing in guests to beat the band just to try and break up. But
the guests wanted to come because it was the only place that was dry. I think they wanted to come get out the blasting rain off the Irish Sea.
Definitely, and I always remember, I remember it vividly, you trying to fill the time. And it was never till I started this channel did I actually go, oh my God, how difficult is that? We would do a podcast maybe for an hour, do you know what I mean? And sometimes if it was a lean week in MotoGP, we're like, how do we extend this? But like you were extending it for like 8 hours, like do you know what I mean? It was like unbelievable. Now, obviously,
I think the funniest story for me was in the commentary booth again. I think it was Richard Nichols, when unfortunately there was a bomb scare and they cleared the paddock out and they forgot about us. We were still sat in there and everyone else had gone.
Where are they bloody well going?
But it's an amazing event, and I'm really glad that they got the situation sorted with the insurances and all of that to make sure that road racing was happening this year in Northern Ireland. Hopefully, Southern Ireland can get it sorted out too, because there is nothing quite like sitting on a ditch and watching people go past you at 200 miles an hour is just it is mind blowing. And there's a guy actually on the channel called Sleepwalker who lives and breathes road racing, so he goes to every single road race event in Ireland himself, his missus, and the caravan appeared out and he's happy out sitting on the ditch sending pictures and videos. So look, it is great, but you have raced around there yourself. Like, how do you if you were to describe to a normal person why or how or what or why is it so appealing, what would you say to them?
Well, I think I'd say the same as probably racing at the TT and the Northwest. It's mad, it's wild. You question your sanity at the time you're doing it, but you have so much fun at the end of it, really. I often describe racing motorcycle a bit like doing exercise. You really don't want to go and do it, but you feel so much better when you've having done it. And the adrenaline buzz that you get from it when you're slipstreaming people, and it's like, it could be 3 times down this main straight. You have to remember, when I was doing it, there was no chicane, so the straights were considerably longer. And you were on a TZ 750 Yamaha. You were, I'd be with John Newbold, John Williams, and Joey Dunlop, and we'd all be slipstreaming one another. And then it wouldn't be the once; it'd be the 3 or 4 times before you got down to the Metropole. And you had snot running out your nose because your helmet didn't fit properly, and there was wind blasting in it, and you were doing 180 miles an hour and bouncing off the bumps, thinking, "What the hell am I doing?" But when that checkered flag came out and you were on the podium there, you knew exactly why you were doing it. So it's very hard to describe. I actually, maybe slightly less now, but I've always enjoyed scaring myself, and that sounds rather stupid, but I've loved pushing the boundaries to what I feel is the maximum. And I'm very probably happy to be as old as I am, because I never ever expected to be this old. If I had done, I'd have looked after myself more, I'm sure. But at the time, you're just living for the day, you're living for the minute, living for the second, and it was brilliant. And I was one of the lucky ones, I guess you could say, because if you looked at the grid of 1978, probably at the Northwest 200, there's probably 50% that aren't here anymore. It was that bad, it was that dangerous. But that made it even more exciting. It was horrible and disastrous, but you just knew that you were pushing that envelope too far, but if you got out of it, you loved what you did. So, that's how I could describe the Northwest. But I'm sure that there's people that jump out of aeroplanes at 30,000 feet or whatever, and there's people that climb Mount Everest and do that, get the same feeling. But because I loved engines and motorbikes, that's what I ended up doing. So I do often feel sorry for people that have never done anything quite like that, because they probably have never experienced that adrenaline fix and the fun that you get from it. But there is a but. I feel also sorry for people that have probably done all that and then find their life rather hollow because they can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Milky actually comes to mind, how much he wants to race in the TT again. Now he gets involved, Milky Quail. Do you remember with his crash?
Who's that? Sorry.
Milky Quail.
Oh yeah, Milky Quail. Yeah.
Well,
he comes Quail. He's going to have a heart attack soon just talking about it.
You could see him.
Listen to Milky Quail doing a lap of the TT on a video screen now. he's going to have a coronary sooner or later because he's like just on the rev limiter and I don't know what his heartbeat is, and that's just talking about the pictures, let alone doing it again.
But you can see how much he loves it, but he can't do it again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it's
I know,
kind of...
and he's lucky because he's got a position in life where he can kind of carry on involved with it, and like I always managed to do. But I do know people that are really just, I know they're missing it, and you can see it in them. They can't do it anymore, but they sort of feel that nothing else is very interesting in life after doing Northwest TT and things like that.
Exactly, and this came kind of one of my questions is that, like, that 15 minutes before the race, so before you say you make the walk through the tunnel on the Northwest, like, how are the nerves? What goes through your mind before you get it? Like, is it focus?
First thing that goes through your mind is, I hope there's not a big queue for the toilet. Because that could hold proceedings up, and I mean it really is. The trepidation is huge, particularly like at the TT when you've got the board goes up with mist on the mountain and damp under Glen Helen because of the trees and this, that, and the other. So it's another trip to the toilet. But it's a time when you're planning what you want to do, how you want to do it. You're focused at exactly what you're doing, but you are also questioning yourself. Well, this is me. I'm not talking about everyone else. I hear someone like Peter Hickman say he's not nervous. I don't believe him, but he says that. But I was always hugely nervous. I'd try to hide it as best I could. But you do question yourself. You're thinking, what the hell am I doing? Why am I about to get on this motorbike and go over these traffic lights and down Bray Hill at 150 miles an hour and possibly see a bloody sheep run across in front of me and hit a pigeon at Ramsey and all these things that go through your head. But it just disappears as soon as that tap on the shoulder. You have nothing else in your head. Even if your wife's about to divorce you and run off with your best mate, or the VAT man's after you, or the tax man's after you, you don't think about anything else. You are on your own. And that's sometimes quite nice.
Yes.
Isn't it that saying, the man hunched over his motorcycle can only focus on the present? You know, he's not worried about his past, future, or whatever.
Sure, yeah. Are literally, it's man and machine fighting
in the
elements.
The two of you against the world. So, two questions now. Last questions on the Northwest specifically. You know, what is your favorite, or what was your favorite section of the triangle in the Northwest?
I think most guys love the coast road because that's where you make a bit more difference than the bike. And it is that section out the Metropole there and underneath the station and Black Hill and all that. That's probably where your short circuit comes into it, or your corner braking abilities all come into it. But the Northwest, I would say, is the one race, T2 to a certain extent, but the one race where you really have to think about what you're up to. Your intelligence kicks in because you are planning that last lap.
You were,
and it's no good. It's no good being leading down the, out. Probably, well, now it used to be from Coleraine because that was it was flat out all the way.
Yeah.
But now it's that section down to the Metropole. It's no good leading out of there with three guys behind you because you know full well you're going to be fourth when you get to the Metropole, and then it's all about scraping your way through there. So there's a hell of a lot of planning, and I can distinctly remember, thinking, right, I know where I want to be. I know whose bike's fast. I want to be behind him, and so you're not only trying to wring the neck of the bike and go around the corners as far as you can. You're also trying to plan that last lap. And we've seen it on numerous occasions where it's changed a bit now because of the chicanes, and it's really the run out of Black Hill down to the chicane there is kind of the last place you're going to do anything, and that's where you have to really think about it. And not being a good multifunctioner, a person that could think on three things at a time, used to rack my brains about where I wanted to be, who I wanted to be next to, and generally I got it wrong.
Oh well,
but that's. I mean, we've had some brilliant races and final moves, haven't we? Down into the final chicanes and things like that. And I'm really looking forward to it again.
We've seen some epic races, to be fair, in there. But one of the things that you said just a while ago is like the golden era, I will call it, before things started getting very sophisticated with machinery and stuff like that. Like, you've raced with some of the absolute legends of the sport, So who is your man, I would suppose, like, who is the person that you found was the best around the Northwest? Like, just every time you rode with them or watched them, or they just went.
I don't know. That's a really quite a tough question, because I don't think when I was racing there was, apart maybe Joey was the slightly. I mean, he won more races there, I think, than most. I think it's Seeley that's won most overall, but Joey in my period was probably the man. But I never felt at the Northwest there was anyone really dominant, because arguably it was who had jetted there. But I mean, we've got to talk about two strokes, because that's what it was. Who'd got the right gearing and jetting on won the race, really, because it was so much about speed. And to a certain extent it is a little bit now, but it was just, you risked whether you're going to die by the bike seizing up or win the race. So I guess sometimes it was a brave guy that won it, because you'd go down a half a jet or one main jet and the bike would pull another 5 horsepower, and that could easily win the race. But at the Northwest 200, I had so many good guys I raced against, and I could name John Newbows, John Williams, Dave Potters, Tom Herons, Joey Dunlop, Stuart Avant, all those guys riding similar bikes to what I was riding, and Mick Grant obviously in there. And any one of us could have won the race. It was often about who had got the jetting right, who had got their maths right and worked out who was going to be the one that got the slips down into the Metropole. In other racing, there's people that stand out in my mind that were brilliant, and I'd have to say Kenny Roberts Sr. was probably the guy that I raced against and sometimes watched and couldn't believe what he was doing. And I'm not taking anything away from anyone else, because Barry Sheen was absolutely brilliant. But Kenny Roberts in my era was probably the man that had the target on his back, because he came over and sort of showed us all how it should be done.
Fair enough. That's great. And then I suppose the big event, well, it depends on which one is your favorite event, but the kind of the big 2 weeks in June, then the Isle of Man, I suppose. If you were to sum it up in a sentence, how would you sum up the whole Isle of Man festival?
A whole bunch of madmen riding ridiculous motorcycles round a crazy circuit. And that's exactly what it is. I want to say to people, if they're watching this and they love road racing, do not get complacent, because it won't go on forever. No. And I'm sad to say that, because I wished it would, but it can't. I mean, we've had a scare already with the Northwest this year. I wasn't sure if I was going there, and in fact, at one point I thought, that's it. It's another part of my life's rich tapestry that I'm not going to enjoy anymore. Don't get complacent. For God's sake, if you're going to the Northwest and there's not a ticket somewhere that you have to buy a program, do whatever you can, because it will go. And it's all very well saying, oh, it's always been free and it should be forever, but that is bullshit. You cannot run these events
for nothing,
for free, because the insurance premiums are huge. Everyone's suing. There's litigation going on everywhere. One of my jobs, and you're probably completely unaware of it, is I work as an expert witness, and I've got 2 cases going on at Mondello Park, and that's not going to happen in motorcycle racing, I believe, this year. Yeah. And it's down to insurance. Yeah. People, we're in this no blame world, and everyone falls off their motorbike and they can't accept the fact that they screwed up themselves and they want to sue someone. So we're in a world of litigation, and road racing won't go on forever. And it could be next year that there isn't a Northwest. It could be next year there isn't even a TT. To go, if you've got the chance, go there as soon as you can.
Well, I will definitely be at the Northwest. I'm staying in a place called Ballycastle.
Okay, I've heard of Ballycastle.
So it's about 15 kilometers from Portrush. So be nice and easy to get in and out, but hopefully.
Right. Well, I'll be staying in the McAvoy Chicane Hotel, or McAvoy Chicane, which isn't the prettiest place, but it's very, very handy. They serve a good pint and the food's all right, and generally I get to sleep there, and then the rest of the time I'm in the paddock area, so I'm almost certain to see you.
Yeah, well, definitely. I will 100% look you up. I'm sure we can. If it's raining, I'll come in and I'll commentate. It's not because
Right.
it's
Okay.
wet, not because it's
Perfect.
the only dry
Perfect.
place. Do you know what I mean? You can give me a shout.
That'll stop Keith Ewing talking a bit then.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Listen, I can out talk Keith Ewan.
Oh,
Trust
good on
me,
you.
I could. Yeah, I'm very subdued today compared to what I normally am. It's normally I
Yeah.
talk for the hour and Jake just tries to get an all add word in.
Oh,
Um,
he just he'll run right over.
but the TT, I suppose, we had kind of the dramas in the Northwest with the tires last year, and you could see on some of the riders' faces last year when they were about to set off on the Dunlop slicks. They were pretty worried. To be
Mm,
fair, what
mm.
do you think is going to happen with this year? Both tire, I suppose, tires for both.
I don't know what's going to happen. I guess I would imagine that they're all very, very nervous because the bikes aren't getting any slower; they're only getting faster. And it was down to, I guess, good track conditions. It was dry and sunny. The speeds were higher and the horsepower was higher than they expected. I don't know. I mean, Dunlop's actually went back to using the treaded tyres even for the superbikes, and even they didn't. We had
Although
problems. Was it who had it? Was it Peter Hickman at the TT? Even had problems, I believe.
Davy Todd, yeah,
David Todd,
Todd.
yeah, even at the TT, because again, that's only getting faster and faster. So you can't believe it's not beyond the realms of the ability of tyre manufacturers to make a tyre that will do the job. But every time you make a tyre that will do the job, you lose grip. And that rider's not happy because he's
Yeah.
not going as fast as he did last year. So
Mhm.
it's going to be awkward. I suspect that there won't be many people on Dunlops at the Northwest this year. So if it is Metzler that are supplying the tyres, they can afford to come back a bit because they're not competing against anyone. That's always the problem when we love competition. You've got 3 tyre manufacturers competing against one another. They want the fastest lap all the time. But maybe someone sat down and worked out that they can make a tyre that will do the distance and do the job, because it was awful last year. I remember the main event last year, there was only half the grid out there because
That's
Dunlop
right.
stopped anyone going out there. So
Yeah.
that was dreadful for the sport. But I'm quite sure everyone's learnt a great deal from what happened last year, and with any kind of luck, we won't have any issues like that this coming year.
Yeah, hopefully not. Hopefully not. Now, one of the questions that I asked you about the Northwest, and you said the Guinness. What are you most looking forward to about setting your foot on the island again this year? Do you know what
On the
the
Isle,
Isle
Northern
of Man,
Ireland, or you mean?
the
Oh, on
Isle
the
of
Isle of
Man?
Man. I have lots of friends out there because I used to live there. I lived on the Isle of Man for 10 years, so I have lots of very close friends out there. And I know this seems weird for a motorcycle racer. I really enjoy golf now because it's something I can still do, and there's some excellent golf courses out there. And just
Right.
being, on that beautiful island, I love having a pint down in Peel and places like that, and some of the little fishing villages. It is a very, very pretty island. But trust me, if you live there, it becomes very dull and dank and miserable in the winter months.
Yeah,
It is like you can have 3 seasons in about 3 hours out there.
it
But
is.
I'll always have an affinity with the Isle of Man. A, because I did it and I survived it and I came away from it. B, I love the TT, and C, I've lots of very close friends out there, and maybe even further down the road, it's a very, very pretty island. So yeah, I'll always enjoy going back there.
And as you said, you ridden it, you competed on it. Like, is there a section of the Isle of Man that is just your section that you're just like you sit in your chair just reminiscing of times on the island? Like, is there a section of it where you go
My
back to?
favourite part was out of Governor's Dip to the flipping finishing line, if I've told the truth.
Successfully done, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
getting to that checkered flag and being able to go home probably was my favourite part. I always struggled with the section from Ginger Hall to Ramsey, and it's probably just the fact that the bikes we were riding, and it was Charlie Williams, my old mate that I'm still close friends with, that raced out and was hugely successful. I'm not sure if it's 9 or 10 times he won the TT, but he always reckoned on the TZs, and whether it be a 350 or a 500 or 750, you were like a rat in a dog's mouth, and it was just being shaken left to right, and it was just madness because you couldn't see where you're going. You're bouncing around. I once had a handlebar break off down Solby Straight because it was so bumpy.
Wow.
And I talk about shit myself, one-handed with that. The throttle hand was just waving around in the air at 160 miles an hour. But I always struggle with that. But I don't know really. Every part of the Isle of Man is so demanding. But if I disliked any part, it was from Ginger Hall, Kerramore, and all through there. Conkatrees, they were the bits that probably scared me. I reckon I rode that at 80% and the rest at maybe 90%, and that was about as far as I ever went. And I always finished in the sort of top 10. I got a third there one year. Joey won it. Tony Rutter was second. I was third, but I don't know I was riding at 80-90%, and they must have been riding at 90-95, and I just never really wanted to die. Frankly, I was allergic to pain.
As a newbie, I do have a question.
Makes sense.
What is the part where you go flying through the air with the jump and you come down? The tire comes down and the rim's twisting. Like I can't believe they hold together after the first landing. Isn't that the most scariest part of the whole place?
No, it's not really, because you're in the air, but you're only doing about 45 miles an hour. There's other places where you're.
Okay.
There's other places when you're in the air much faster, and you don't really know what's going to happen when you land. So, no, Balaf isn't. There's no time really to be lost or made there. You just get the thing over, and people that jump the furthest are usually the slowest because you want the wheels on the ground to accelerate. Yes. So you watch the smart guys and the fast guys. They usually don't jump too much because you can't get any traction when you're in the air. So it's spectacular and it looks pretty good, but it's not the scariest part by any means. There's nothing. There's other areas where you're in the air and you're doing 160 miles an hour, and they're the places that can get your attention even more. But it's good to watch from there.
Yeah. We actually have a friend of the channel who's actually out there, a guy called Manxman, and his name is Keith Forsyth. But he's a great guy. He's always sending us information about what's going on the ground. And I remember watching the TT trying to tune into long wave radio so that you could pick up Manx radio to hear what's going on. And I suppose last year it really broke a ceiling, I suppose, in the Isle of Man where it went, we'll call it digital. Do you know what I mean? You were able to stream the races live. I thought it did brilliant to bring the fans into there to see what exactly happened. Because Jake, you wouldn't know, but there was only two ways you could watch what was going on in the Isle of Man. The first one that I always remember was the Manx radio, and the second one then was that it came online actually, so that you could actually follow a leaderboard of what was going on. But it's now it's really bringing it to the fans, and hopefully, what you said a while ago about buying a program, that people will actually just buy the subscription and support it, because it's, as I said, everything is in danger.
They must. Someone came up with a great idea for the Northwest, and it's very difficult to lock off every road and not let people in. But I think they should sell a lanyard around your neck, and it sort of says that I've actually paid my 25 quid or whatever it is, and you can buy a flipping yellow one, a red one, a blue one, whatever. And maybe the one, if you spend 50 quid, you get into the paddock area or whatever. And I think that's something that should be done. And if you're a true supporter of road racing, you want to see it continue, then you're going to have to pay the money, because where else can you go and watch anything free? You can't anymore, can you?
No.
There is nothing free anymore, and there can't be. And it's nothing to do with the teams and riders wanting more money. It's all to do with the cost of administration and the running and the insurances and everything that goes on with it. So I just hope that everyone realises this has been a bit of a shake-up, and it's a bit of a scare for everyone. And one of these days it won't be happening unless we support it.
All the time we get people saying, MotoGP, the subscription for the year is $120, and they're screaming. I said, buddy, it costs $100 for a tank of gas or a carton of cigarettes. What do you expect? You're getting a whole year's worth of watching. Of the sport you love.
I agree. Yeah,
So
for
how
sure.
much?
I was in London
Deal.
last weekend. I was in London last weekend. I bought 4 drinks, 4 gin and tonics, and it came to £81. That'd nearly buy you a subscription,
Jesus.
wouldn't it? For
Did it come
watching
with a
it. So,
waitress?
yeah. So, it's just something that we have to think about, and maybe it's been a good thing that's scared us with the Northwest, because it just cannot carry on unless we pay to go and do something. And there's going to be some people that won't turn up. Well, that's what they're going to have to do. Simple as that. The interesting thing at the Northwest this year is that it's covered by BBC Northern Ireland, filmed by Greenlight TV, which are based on the Isle of Man. But with the modern day technology, they don't even need a production truck at the event now. They stream it all back to their headquarters on the Isle of Man, and they're doing that a lot with races in America, streaming it back to the Isle of Man and stuff like that. So again, the TV will only get better and better.
Yeah, I think so. And look, like, it's good that it gives the fans the access that can't make it there, because like trying to get on the ferry to get to the Isle of Man is like, it's booked out. I think 2024 is already booked out. Do you know what I mean? You can't get there for. Do you know what I mean? And it is just incredible to try and get the access. And as I said, you would only two ways. You could never see it live. You could only listen to it live. Do you know what I mean? And you could see the scoreboard or whatever. But I just think, look, it's great that they're bringing it to the fans. And look, I'm all for, if you get a day's entertainment, what's 10 or 15 quid just to say thank you. Do you know what I mean? It's not even about.
Do you mean the ferry is actually, like, you can't get into the island? It's not to break you off for 2024? Because I want to go in 2024. We were planning on it.
Yeah. You can fly in. You can
fly in. Okay, good. Okay.
I think you can probably get on as a foot passenger or something. But like you say, motorhomes and vehicles are probably all booked up.
Exactly.
It is ironic. It is ironic. Yeah.
It's some event, and I suppose one of my favorite races out there is the blue ribbon, is the senior race. I think it's going to be very hard to look past Peter Hickman again this year. He was on fire last year, but I suppose you never know what's going to happen with it. But the senior is the one everyone wants. What's the nerves like for those races, Joe? Like, the other races are scary, but this is one kind of, there's a bit of, every racer goes over, they're kind of dreaming of that one.
Yeah, I don't know. I think from my view, it didn't matter what race it was. The race was a race, whether it be the 250, 350, 500 seniors, super stock, whatever. You go out there and do your thing. And I'd agree with you. Peter Hickman is very much on fire, and he's the man. But there is so many things that can go wrong at the TT, as we've seen in the past. Josh Brooks is back, I think, this year.
He is FHO, yeah.
Davey Todd's getting faster and faster. I think Peter's only going to get more and more competition, not less. That's the way I see it. I spent a couple of weeks with Michael Dunlop actually over in South Africa. I went over there to do some classic racing.
I actually saw that on Instagram.
He was out there, and he's also, he's bang on form. He's getting a lot of riding and things like that. But same old deal. It's your machine is a big part of it. To finish first you must finish.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, it's always very hard to pick the winner, and I think that's what I love about the TT is that, like, when we look at Hutchie when he did the 5, do you know what I mean? No one thought he could do it. Do you know what I mean? And then looking at, like, it was just pure luck in a few of them. John pulled out with it. What was it, like a little wire broke or something? Do you know what I mean? He was in the lead. But look, it's something I suppose form can't even predict, because every race is different. You have a good lap, a bad lap, a bad pit stop. Sure. Which Jake would probably.
I think I'm right. With Hutchie, one of the races got stopped, and if it hadn't have got stopped, they wouldn't have fixed the bike because it got something wrong with them.
That's right.
It was the Guy Martin crash, I think, wasn't it? And then they stopped the race, and Hutchie got a problem with his bike, and Padgett's managed to fix the thing up, and he went out. So you're right, a bit of a lottery at times, but yeah.
And was it Cummins was in the lead at that stage actually when that happened? Was it? I
Yeah, I
can't,
think
I
it
can't, I
probably was
can't,
actually. Yeah,
I can't
yeah,
remember. But
yeah,
it's and then Cummins then was he had an accident then as well? Yeah, with Guy Martin on the restart, wasn't it? He had that big off up
yeah.
at the
That's right.
veranda.
He did. He did.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
so yeah, look, it's a scary place, but it's a holy grail of a place for bikers to go. And if you can
Yeah.
get the chance to go there, absolutely. But if you're living around a small road race, like there's a small road race on here in Cork, you know, might as well go and support it, buy a jersey or a t-shirt or whatever, support the club that's running it.
Yeah.
Just so, because look, I don't think we'll have it here. Well, sorry, there is final negotiations, or there's negotiations on with insurance companies here. Was the last time I saw from the Motorcycle Union of Ireland that
Mm.
they were hoping to get it going, because it is a shame now. I'm a big fan of there's a little drag race on down in West Cork. I'm a big fan of that. They close off one of the main arteries into West Cork, and we go racing on it, which I find fairly funny. Do you know what I mean? In this day and age where things are going, but yeah, I suppose other than the TT, I do have a fascination of, and I said this to you earlier. One of my first memories of you was in the BP big green truck.
Hmm.
So I'd love to know how you got from bike racing over into truck racing.
Basically, a fear of having a proper job. I didn't ever want to get one of those. And having retired from racing bikes and then moving into running my Loctite Yamaha team, which was going very well. Barry Sheen got a deal to race a DAF truck, and as we used to hang out a lot together, I was a bit jealous and wanted to have a go in truck racing because he was doing it. And I approached Mercedes-Benz, and they accepted the fact that I just told them I could drive a truck, which I'd never driven one, but I told them I could, and had a go at it, and I could. I was pretty good at it. So it sort of went from there, really, a bit of serendipity, just right time, right place. And truck racing had just turned up in the UK in 1984, 4 or 5, I can't remember. And it all went really well to start with. And then I realised that it wasn't going to get me to so many hospitals as motorbikes did. And then Mercedes-Benz decided to pay me a lot more money than I got from motorcycle racing, and it was a match made in heaven. So it went on for another 10 years, and it enabled me to carry on racing for 10 years longer than I ever could have raced motorcycles.
And the trucks were pretty quick, weren't they?
Oh, they were ridiculously fast. Yeah, I last raced a truck when Mercedes quit the sport at the end of 2001. And the truck I raced, I've got a picture up there, it was about 2,200 horsepower, had 7,000 Newton meters of torque, and it would make a 911 turbo Porsche look pathetic off the line.
Yeah, I remember.
It was fast.
I actually remember that I was watching them going to 100 miles an hour. Like, this was the old telemetry on Eurosport, which was pretty crap, but it was showing trucks going, I thought was 100 kilometers an hour, but at the time then it was actually miles per hour, and it's just like, it can't be a truck going 100 miles an hour on a little racetrack.
Yeah.
At a full field of trucks going into a hairpin drama.
It was diesel or gas?
Diesel.
The diesel, yeah,
Diesel?
12 litre diesel with 2,200 horsepower. They were ridiculous, really. Yeah.
It was absolutely epic. I actually used to love watching it.
But the actual diesel technology it's certainly with Mercedes, and I guess most of the other manufacturers are involved, which was MAN, DAF, Caterpillar, you name it. A lot of the diesel technology came from truck racing, because when it started in 1985, the only reason you would buy a diesel car is if you like the smell or the noise, because they were shy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But by the 2000s, diesels were winning Le Mans 24-hour races. So
that's right.
Technology improved immensely, and personally, I still drive a diesel car because it's got more torque and it's better fuel consumption and it's just as quiet as a petrol. So a lot of diesel technology was actually developed via truck racing.
And well, on that bombshell, we're going to end for today. But Steve, look, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
I really can't wait for the Northwest. It's only a couple of weeks away now, or a couple of days, depending on when you're watching this. But yeah, I will definitely meet you for a pint.
Okay.
And we'll see we might even put a bet on Friday night to see who takes the Northwest Trophy on the Saturday.
Right, okay. Well, after Thursday, we'll have a better idea, won't we?
We will exactly. We'll have a genuine idea anyway, a genuine idea. But look, thanks again so much for coming on.
Okay.
And,
Take care.
We'll see you soon. Thanks, Steve.
Take care. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.